Hello there.
Hello, folks. This is Microwaved One, and of course, joining me is TNT of ETM. We're going to be doing a large, vast interview today. We're going to be covering, of course, the new existence of the Second ETM Empire, and of course, North American politics in general. This is, again, Microwaved One. How is it to be on the show, TNT?
Oh, it's great. I joined the Discord server a bit ago. I've been reading the newspapers. They've been very high quality, very informative. It's good to be an official kind of writing of the server.
Yeah. And you've joined an elite group. I believe there have only been, I looked at this yesterday, there have only been 19 people ever officially interviewed on video. So,
Oh,
welcome.
interesting. Yeah, that's cool.
All right. So let's crack it down right to the basics. What is your official position in this Eternal Mayan Empire?
I picked up the role that I had when I last was banned. In the last ATM, I'm minister, which is essentially the highest you can get. So minister is like the leader role, like the higher government.
Hmm.
I am officially head of the Grand Armada, which is the Navy,
I see.
um, which means I'm also head of the Pacific Fleet.
Interesting.
So, although I control the whole fleet, I am in more direct control of the fleet on the West Coast. For the other fleet is the Caribbean Fleet, which is admiraled by S.E.E, which you may know as Dogwater.
Yes, I have. The former, I believe, Katz Armin is often what he is known as.
No, 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 no. Catherine is XMO.
Different cat, different.
Um,
Oh, Exmo, X. It's same thing. Both
yes.
start with X.
Yeah, no, 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 no. Zeode is a different person.
I see.
Yes.
Interesting. So officially, the leader of ETM2 is, of course, Matt's VR, Matt's Battle Royale. And
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys officially hit the stage about 1 month ago?
The stage of like returning
Yes.
about a month ago. Yeah, a little over a month.
Now, what inspired the return of ETM? Now, obviously, after ETM's collapse about a year ago, there was a lot of resurgence attempts, I believe, in January and sometime last autumn, there were some resurgent attempts by Matt. But now it's officially happened, and now ETM is a full, existing, and relatively powerful nation. How did this come to be?
So the researchers' attempts were lacking a couple of things. Mainly the fact that we simply lacked manpower. We had players who were loyal and experienced. That's the issue. Uh, Discord surfers. This attempt was headed by primarily me and Mats. Our original plan was to make a nation in South America and merge it with, and have the nation of West Coast Republic merge into us.
Hmm.
But that plan fell apart it's a long story. And then Matt's BR, as you might know, has great relations with Fake Four.
Yes,
And so Fake Four said, "Don't." Our plan was to buy Requiem, the Caribbean fort.
I see. Yeah.
Um, Fake said, "Don't buy Requiem. I will give you America, like the U.S."
Hmm.
And so at this time, West Coast Republic was not interested in merging with us. So Katz Armin, who held like the southern West Coast Republic area,
The California
had
region.
California region, yes, as well as Liberta, the fort. Um,
Mhm.
Once we got Trinity, Matt renamed United States into ETM, and we've been slowly gathering OG members as they've come back slowly across time. We've existed. Um, we started off with just me, Matt, and Nuxier, who you might remember.
Yes, I do.
And then at the Hearts of Nations event, I recruited a Walla,
Hmm.
who was PvPer, or is PvPer. And then more recently, we have gotten Zeod back in the nation.
I see. From
Um,
now, you mentioned previously that there was a little bit of trouble integrating the WCR states. You said that there was a plan to try and kind of merge into them, and that fell apart. In what
yes.
ways did
So
that fall apart?
now there was a player in the then bustling town of Santa Cruz named Snore, and he was technically OGTM. He was in Tumble City with me and Mars and all of our
Hmm.
gang. So OGTM, he camped WCR before we kind of existed formally, and that soured relations. Um, and so with a member of our nation who WCR didn't really like him, they weren't quite willing to join us after that incident of being camped.
I see. Now, I am now I've now obviously let me get my bearings a little bit. That southern section did join you guys up, but the northern section of what was WCR, now Alaska, still exists. Now, as
Yes.
we said in the pre-interview, this is off recording, Stoviet briefed me of these ideas and of what was happening. So let me get the full, undigested, word from word mouth idea of what has happened with the camping situation over there. I'm aware like several players have gone, have camped that Alaska region, specifically with leaders. What is the situation? How is ETM trying to negotiate that? And what is the plan regarding Alaska?
Um, Now, this is a minor divide in the government of ETM. Um, However, there is certainly a group of ministers who believe Katz has a slight bone to pick with WCR. This is not from. This is not from like it's not ETM's doing. It's partially aided by like stuff that happened in the past with past iterations, past nations in the area. As for the camping, um, there has been instances, yes, where it's a lot of miscommunication. So Snore and at the time Mars were for camping WCR because they wanted the stuff that their members carried. And there was a time where WCR was buying British Columbia, the big town in the West Coast.
Hmm. Yes.
At the time owned by Caribbean Empire. And when there was multiple WCR leaders in British Columbia examining the town for sale, this was mistaken as a large amount of players going down the coast to possibly camp Santa Cruz in retaliation, and thus through more miscommunication, the army of ETM was called to British Columbia to try and halt this camping. Um, I'm unaware at this time. I mean, this was a while ago. But I'm unaware if any blood was spilled. But I do know that there was at least two ETM ministers at British Columbia who were armed. Of course, this is neither nation knew exactly what was going on, like on both sides, but it was certainly not. It wasn't quite a step towards souring relations, but it didn't help much.
Have relations soured between the two countries?
In recent times, yes. I believe a few days ago, Snore went up to Alaska and killed New Gen Ninja, leader of WCR, when he was fixing railroads, um, and took many valuable items from him. Now, there was compensation given by ETM Minister Epic Lees in the form of money, but this has certainly put a dampen or a souring of relations between ETM and WCR. Now, on the same note, Epiclease has also enacted a trade deal with West Coast Republic to buy fuel from them. In exchange, I can't remember the exact deal. If Stone remembers, you can say it in the chat. But Epiclease to buy fuel from them in exchange for us not camping them. The original plans for them to merge into us have long since gone. It's unlikely of even like alliance, considering their very, very brave in their steadfast ways to stay neutral.
I see. Now, as you may have already learned, and as you will learn, that area of Alaska, and explicitly the West Coast, is kind of a melting pot of various ideals and former governments. So definitely, I would say a lot of instability has arisen from that kind of area. And you've mentioned several people that have been former leaders of countries like, again, the WCR and the New California Republic. And I want to explicitly zero in some of your ministers. So, on which ministers in specific are trying to argue more against Alaska, and what are the ministers on the other side?
This is, of course, a very fluid topic because I think on the side of ministers who are more so against WCR, um, for ministers who are firmly against WCR, it's really only Katz or Mean, and that's because of things that have happened in
Past
the
tensions,
past. Wait, what?
past tensions and stuff.
Yes, past tensions, as well as some recent um, kind of mishaps. Um, I would say I have friends in WCR. I wish for them to remain like unmeddled with. Matt's PR also wishes to simply leave them alone. But as for Mars, Awala, and Epiclease, they are more so neutral. They can go either way. But recently, they have been much more friendly to WCR.
I see. Moving away from the WCR topic, obviously ETM, I believe, is associated with, if not a part of, what is now called the New World Order. Is this correct?
Yes.
Now, in what way? Now, obviously, ETM has a lot of relations with a key New World Order member, Floritania. How has Floritania's influence over, obviously, the new ETM caused ETM to come more into this general alliance with these other outside nations?
So originally, when we formed, we were content with being friends, having a full alliance with Flortania, and perhaps no one else. I mean, of course, we didn't hate really anyone except at the time, except for the people who would attack Flortania. But there was one day, I don't know exactly when, where Flor came to us and said, "Hey, Canada has made a naval base on the west coast. They're planning to siege Trinity." And they urged us to join New World Order so they could protect us.
I
We
see.
talked with Gray Mesa, leader of Canada, and he told us that the base was just trading port. It was not for military use. And he actually, I mean, he didn't. The port fell the day after. But we were, by the time, we had fast tracked the process so much that we were in New World Order.
I see.
And now we are here. We have gone to a few battles in the Americas, a few in Africa. Yeah.
Interesting. Speaking of Canada, obviously Canada is one of the only major alliance nations in North America. What is ETM's relations with the Canadian Dominion?
We are only enemy to them, or we were only enemy to them by proxy, by alliance with other nations.
Hmm.
In fact, before the creation of the Ninth Symphony, the siege base on Trinity, there had been ideas, maybe not serious ones, but ideas floated around of peace with both sides almost.
Okay.
Of course, none of those came to fruition or even serious consideration. Um, but at the moment, with a siege base being printed on Trinity today, um, we are enemies.
Interesting. Now,
Yes.
again, moving more laterally wise, following each nation's path, what are relations with the Caribbean Empire?
Oh boy.
Obviously, I know ETM has a lot of history
So
with Caribbean and cultist, but now you're both on the same side of one coin. So how are you
yes.
guys interacting with them?
So we joined New World Order, and of course, Caribbean Empire is in the New World Order.
Hmm.
And as many know who might be listening to this, I guess it's not podcast. I guess is writing. Um, Eternal Mayan Empire and Caribbean Empire, or I guess then cultist, um, were in a large conflict that resulted in the end of the first Eternal Mayan Empire. And so, with now being on the same side, I'll say we feel fine about it. We like the security of having friends on the continent, and so many of them.
Hmm.
Um, but definitely in the early days of being in New World Order, we were um, uneasy alliance kind of. However, a bit of an interesting thing came a bit. I'm told I did not see this. I did not see this event, but I was told of it. That when we asked to join New World Order, there was a vote put forward by the leaders of New World Order. And one of the leaders of Caribbean Empire, not Potts, voted against us joining New World Order. I guess joining, I guess Legion at the time. So he voted against us joining Legion, and something happened, and he was kind of, how I say, removed from power. So I'm told.
There,
Um,
according to my sources, it wasn't explicitly because of this vote, but he essentially left on his own accords and was, uh, how we say, brutally exiled.
okay, because I'm not perfectly privy to the events that happened there. I was only told of it via third, secondhand sources.
Yes. I'm not explicitly well aware of the events, although a lot of cultists, or a lot of Caribbean higher ups have been kind of experiencing a similar sort of thing where they have fallen into inactivity and or have fallen astray. And what I mean by astray is obviously by disobeying various server rules in Minecraft, of course, and
Mm-hmm.
getting banned, and that's not a very good thing. But anyway, that's counter to the point. But yeah,
Yes.
still, nonetheless, there are a lot of tensions brewing in that area, and according to various sources, correct me if I'm wrong, there was a conflict in between Caribbean and ETM before ETM joined the New World Order, correct?
I do not I do not exactly remember this. No.
Was there not a conflict between Owala in what we would consider the Peninsula when Nats put a
You
major
cut out.
town there?
Sorry.
Well, was there a
You
conflict? Was there a specific
you cut
conflict
out.
in southern
What
Mexico
did you say?
that I cut out?
Conflict between Awala and someone?
In
Yeah, yeah, you cut out.
against cultists in New Merida in southern Mexico.
I believe that was after we joined New World Order.
I see.
Um, New Merida.
Yes,
Yes.
in Mexico.
Um, so bit of like background, kind of. May or may not be. I'm not again. Not, I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what happened, but I know that Matt had asked Caribbean if we could buy Requiem into America to get our or to like be in to expand down south to where
Hmm.
our original claims were. And Aches, leader of cultists, that's how I say his name, had kindly declined, saying that he wished for his nation to get out of the tough spot he was in. Um,
Hmm.
and so that was maybe like a week or two before this happened. And then
See.
Matt put the capital down where it is now, just south of New Merida,
Hmm.
and we wanted to put more like towns in the area. However, um, again, don't know exactly how it happened, but I do remember there was not pots in Caribbean Empire claim blocking towns down there, and there was a part of the Eternal army that was called in to try and deal with this. But before any blood was spilled, I think maybe someone got stabbed. It was self diplomatically.
I
I do
see.
remember there was some bloodshed, but I don't know exactly who or where.
Hmm. Now, you mentioned expansion into South
And
America. So
I'm in
obvious,
California. I'm far from these things, but I should be well informed enough.
I see. Now, like, obviously, ETM's former major region was, of course, in the north of South America. The former capital is in what I believe is modern, in real world Guyana, which, of course, is in northern South America. What are the plans regarding that area? Is ETM trying to expand there? Is there a future fort to be built? What's the situation?
We hope to expand there once we get the green light. Not green light. Once we are told by our Caribbean allies that um, we can expand down there because we don't want to unnerve our allies because they're apparently because they told us a while ago they were in a bit of a tight spot. Um, However, we have towns who are willing to join us once we make a fort down there.
Hmm.
But again, that is in the future. That is not yet.
I see. Now, just a few days ago, we did have an interview with Solo Duck of Ironwood. Obviously, Ironwood with Canada is one of the two major alliance nations in North and South America. And he was explicitly talking about Caribbean Empire a lot. Now, one of the major things with Caribbean Empire, and I've become very aware of this, is that they have a very dwindling base. Do you think that, theoretically, if Caribbean Empire were to collapse or cave in, that this
You could
base,
have.
like these large, low player base, would come to ETM? Or do you think they would go to a different nation?
Did you say like if it were like fall because he cut out there?
Oh, sorry. If they were to
It's fine.
theoretically fall, yes.
Okay. Um, I that is a very complex matter because it is, of course, it is tens, possibly dozens of towns. Yeah, it is dozens of towns. It is three massive forts. It is like 40 active residents who would have to find new nations. I can imagine that a percentage of the player base of Caribbean would go to ETM. Um,
Hmm.
but I cannot imagine it would be higher than any of like the other nations, because especially because any of like the senior players who were in Caribbean cultists when they were fighting ETM the first time wouldn't probably like to be our nation very much.
I see.
Again, that's a complex matter.
Now, kind of moving away from North America, obviously the header of the alliance that you are a part of, the New World Order, the big coalition, is Quintessence. Now, the Quintessence
Quintessence.
Syndicate, to my understanding, has a lot of old ETM players, has a lot of old Cultist players, a lot of old Thracian players. Was there a player base from Quintessence that has moved out of Quintessence into ETM?
We have not had any major players come from Quinn. Yeah, no.
I see.
we've had we've I believe we've had individuals, like very small amounts of individual players, who were either like small members or just wanted to leave quintessence and come to a different nation. But that has been a very limited number, like 3 players.
Hmm.
Um, now
I
I
see.
know I realize when we reformed that XETM members were everywhere in the world because so when ETM collapsed, I'd say maybe like half of the experienced players of the nation moved to Greenland. Not the Greenland we know today, but like it
A
was
different
less
thing, yes.
colonized, I'd say. Yeah. And then I kind of lost contact after the first month or so of what happened. But I believe they were in Greenland, made a nation, made a fort, and then kind of just dispersed throughout the world.
Hmm.
Like so now we have a thing where I have like former friends and former nation members on both sides of this massive war.
I see. So
Um,
you're essentially
I
saying
got,
there was an ETM diaspora across the world.
yes, diluting,
I see.
if you will. I know that MC Burger Warrior, who was in ETM for a time during its latter half of its lifetime, is in Siberia. I'm pretty sure.
He is now one of the high ranks of Siberium. That is correct.
Oh, okay, nice. Um, I know Porpotu has been for a while in Ironwood.
Hmm.
Porpotu is not. Porpotu did not see ETM to the end because that's a whole different
A
deserves a
whole
whole new
different can of worms.
podcast. But
Yeah.
it's a long story that I don't. It's complex and long and dumb. Um, but they're in Ironwood. They're on the opposite side of. But of course, on the other side of the table, we have Quintessence, who has players like Herdcell and Vectorvexer, who were both ministers in ETM when it fell.
Hmm. Speaking of Vectra, he currently controls, and this is to my understanding, most of the former capital um, in Coagula, correct?
Yes.
Now,
So
another
Vectorvexer
thing,
is sorry, go
another
on.
thing,
Yeah,
am I pronouncing, this has been a little bit of a debate for
Coagula.
about 9 months. Is it Coagula or is it Coagula?
It's Coagula.
Is it really Coagula?
Coagula. That does not sound right to me, at least.
Oh no. I've been calling it Coagula for the past like 12
Coa.
months. No. Oh, I've literally debated people on this. I've always been calling it Coagula.
You've written
No.
papers on this.
I might legitimately though. That oh my gosh.
I mean, Coagula. I mean, it makes sense why someone would call it that because I mean the coalition was
Yeah,
spelled
that's what I
COA to my
thought. That's
knowledge.
why I thought it
Coa.
was called that. Oh
But no, it's
man.
Coagula.
Dang. Okay. Well, shoot. I just feel a little bit defeated now.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
fine.
Anyway, so
So about
obviously Vectra controls Coagula. Has there been any communication to try and regain Coagula back?
before we formally existed, I'd say a month before, Matt Spear went down to Coagula and talked with his old friend Vector Vexer, um, and asked like if like could do like a few things like for us with Coagula and Sun Harvest. So Vector Vexer owns Coagula and Sun Harvest. He has a holder on Sun Harvest.
Hmm.
You can Sun Harvest is an original ETM town. It is the same claim, same town from ETM days.
Yes.
As you can see on map, it has the collection, or at
It
least
has
a
many
fraction of the
things.
collection of Vector Vexer,
Yes,
whose hobby is
Vectra.
stealing ships.
Yeah, Grand Theft Vectra has we've had him on the show. He's
You
got a
have? Oh,
collection.
nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've told this story before, and I think I told it last episode, but when I was interviewing Vectra, I went to Sun Harvest, and I saw at least I saw one of the cars that I had built. It was a what was it? It was a howitzer truck, and I think he purposely drove it up to the first floor and put it on deck right into the beginning, so when I walked in that I would see it.
That's
So
good.
yeah,
As, now, little side note. Two things. One, what you see in Coagula is not all of Vectra's earnings, if you will.
it is not the
Of
full
course,
collection.
I believe he got all of his stuff out of his own old town Silverkeep. But he put it
Mhm.
in Coagula, like the capital of ETM last time, and then he forgot to fund it one day and it fell,
Mhm.
and maybe a quarter of the collection was stolen. Of course, what he has here is still a fleet that's bigger than most nations in the server, um, but it is not all of the ground vehicles.
Yeah. I do
Um,
believe a vast majority, if someone were to pilot every single vehicle in that town, then there would probably be more pilots than there are people on the server.
it's possible, but also I heard a tale once. Now that I've been part of his movecraft heists, if you will, um,
Yes,
using like game mechanics, ingenious ways to get movecraft like five IFEs or Lieutenant AA trucks or such. I heard tale of him once that he stole a crane from Natal.
he did.
Um, no
I
clue
don't
how,
I don't
but he did.
explicitly remember how he stole the crane, but there are many photos of it.
Me neither. I remember then the next morning, lounge chat. David Brazil was crying as to why his crane was gone. I'm getting off topic. Okay, so
Anyway, ETM. Yes.
right, ETM. So Matt has asked. Of course, we're not in the South yet.
Hmm.
He can join the nation if he wanted to, but I do not think that both either Quagula or Sun Harvest will be joining ETM.
I see.
Vec has shown at least like 2 months ago has shown little interest in coming back to his old nation. Now, of course, that could have changed. I have not talked to him in a bit.
I
Um,
see.
Western Coagula is held by a holder of Matt's BR, which contains some of the historical buildings.
Hmm.
Um, and we'll be joining ETM when it eventually somehow expands down south.
Now, I do recall when we first brought up the topic of expanding south, you said that you were waiting for the green light. Does that mean you're waiting for Caribbean or Quintessence to tell you that you can build a fort down there?
Um, I was not fully in the conversation that this was this curtain, um, but Caribbean. Um,
I see.
at least at the time of us asking, which was maybe a month ago, maybe less probably. They said that they wish that they preferred if we stayed out of the South for a while,
I see.
um, because they were stabilizing something, and so we honored our allies' wishes, um, and we are both just like trying to get stable and get set up here in the north, and simply waiting for allies to say we can come down south.
Intriguing. Now, speaking of just general nations, phasing back north, obviously there's Greenland, which is the only nation left in North America that we haven't really talked about.
Nation, what?
Greenland, the Empire of Greenland. What are
You cut out.
ETM relations with Greenland? Are there relations with Greenland?
You are cutting out like crazy.
Am I really? Wait. Okay.
I did not hear a single word of what you just said.
Oh, well, that's great. Okay.
Yeah, I it just silence.
Now I have the. Okay, here we go. Alright, so anyway, moving northbound, obviously there is the only country in North America that we have not yet talked about, which is the Empire of Greenland. What are relations with Greenland from ETM to Greenland?
Um, of course, when we first formally was formed again, our relations were only well, they were neutral. They were just, I think when we were formed, they were a neutral nation. I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure. No, okay. I think at some point they were on Koa's side. Then they were neutral. Then they were alliance. Um,
They've had some
Either
interesting
way,
ties in the past.
yes. We have not had like direct talks with Greenland at all.
I see.
But currently relations are bad because from what I've seen, only Greenland, Kingdom of Greenland players are building the siege base on Trinity.
Interesting.
Um, Today we had a bit of a standoff at Trinity, including a Zeppelin fight, except both Zeppelins have no AA ammo.
That's great.
Because someone took it out of my Zeppelin. I swear to God. Sorry. But that Zeppelin was piloted by three Greenland players. It was also Greenland players who fought with Epic Lees and Snore at Trinity, and it was Greenland players who were printing the siege base a few hours ago, and I
Do you
assume
think that
currently still.
there's any specific reason Greenland alone is contributing to the siege base on Trinity?
I don't know. I mean, I would assume that Canada would do this. I mean, like they're closer. It's more so their fight, but it could be that Canada has their hands tied, so to speak.
I see.
Um, I It's a reason that it's a the answer eludes me.
Intriguing. Have they at all expressed intentions of instigating a siege or perhaps even trying to invade?
You mean aside from printing a siege base?
But aside from fronting the siege base and the
um,
kerfuffles,
no. Aside from the skirmishes and the printing, we've had little to no talks with them or
intriguing.
interactions with them.
Well,
I guess we're simple.
with that, I believe we've covered every nation in North America. I mean,
Yes,
unless you have any relations with Venovia, although to my understanding, Venovia is mostly inactive,
yes. Venovia is currently busy. They're playing Crusalis.
as most people do.
But they are, as you might know, a Logon nation.
Yes,
And
definitely.
so they're playing different servers. I'm sure every nation in North America has considered sieging them, only to be like poked away by the fact that they're good at PvP.
Huh.
Um,
Well, that's intriguing, I guess.
yes.
Well, with that, we've covered every nation in North America and every nation in South America. Are there any other major things about ETM that the public should know that they don't know now?
Um, I don't think there's anything. I think there's. I think the current population of ETM is a very strange point because I mean we're still a relatively new nation.
Hmm.
We consist of either players who are extremely veteran from the last ETM or players who are new recruits and little in between.
I see.
Um, which is I think puts us in an opposition because we have some kind of we have leadership, but we don't have quite all those to execute leadership's
You have
ideas except for
managers,
leadership
but you don't have
themselves.
workers, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
I see.
Um, yeah, but we are going about fixing that slowly
Now,
via training and recruiting.
looking more into that militaristically, obviously Canada is preparing a siege base, or more specifically, Greenland is preparing that siege base. What are ETM's military strengths? Would you say that you guys are a particularly strong nation? Are you guys working on to becoming a strong nation? What is the level of capability within the ETM military currently?
I think the ETM military right now is at I think comparing to the last ETM, it is of course weaker. We are a smaller nation. We are newer, but I think we certainly are doing things better than last time. Last time, our logistics were questionable.
Hmm.
This time they're far more solid. Um, and last time our navy was actually vast, but we had no leadership for navy.
I
There
see.
was no admirals, there was no people, there was no like sailors, there was no pilots of ships. We just kind of existed. We had destroyers, but no pilots for them. This
Hmm.
time we have a navy command structure. We have a navy. I think we are a nation. We're getting stronger, is what I can say. I think
Growing in tide.
we're growing in tide, but of course, training players takes time.
Hmm.
But the players we do have who have soldier rank know what they're doing, which is
I
good.
see. Now, earlier you mentioned that you were admiral of the ETM fleet, and obviously you talked about ETM's naval capabilities a little bit there. Has the ETM fleet, both on the West Coast or the East Coast, been to major naval regions? Has it been tested yet, and are the pilots experienced?
So the fleet is not very big yet.
I see.
Zeode is in charge of the fleet on the East Coast.
Hmm.
Um, and he is in the town. He's in the capital. He's in the capital just south of Merida. So there's no Caribbean fleet yet. The Pacific Fleet has had a little bit of action. Um, I'm working on the pilots we have are not the greatest.
I see.
We've been to no naval regions. Um, Instead, we have been working on submarine warfare,
Really?
which has not proven effective in convoy raiding yet because our opponents, our foes like Canada and Greenland, they don't really do ships a lot from what I've seen. Or they don't. At least they don't have like from what I've seen, Greenland and Canada does not do cargo ships very much.
No, not really.
Or much as, for example, for that matter. We did have one naval battle very early in our existence. It was me in a Corvette against Boxy in a Corvette. Boxy was a part of Rome at the time.
See.
And I lost this battle, but I lost it for a reason that would become repetitive because at the time I had just moved back from Alaska. I had owned the town of Zvidikov in Alaska,
Hmm.
and I had packed all my stuff into my ships, my submarine, my Zeppelin, and my Corvette. And then in my unloading of my stuff, I accidentally took all of the foreign shells out of the Corvette's guns.
Ah,
And so I was
uh,
fighting a naval duel against a max block Corvette with no guns. Um, I
hmm.
lost the Corvette, unfortunately.
I
Um,
would assume that you would lose the Corvette in that kind of skirm in that kind of
it
skirmish. I
wasn't.
mean,
It was not as far off as you might think. I mean, no offense to Boxy, but like, come on, man. I had 6 torpedoes, and I lived enough to get off like 4 volleys on each side.
no, that's
Either
actually
way,
very surprising.
a shame that all then be armed. Either way, that battle was also commented by a land battle against Boxy, which he
Hmm.
won as well. But it was not all Boxy win because my first use of my submarine sank his Corvette.
Really?
Well, I mean, it didn't sink it, but it was unpiloted and it got torn apart by torpedoes. That was the
Impressive.
first. Yeah, that was the first use of my submarine, and I do seek to use it in the future more.
Intriguing.
Yeah, so the
Now,
Navy of the Pacific Fleet. Yeah. Isn't great.
Now, when I asked that if the ETM fleet had much experience, and you said that you were in a combat fleet, I expected multiple other pilots besides yourself to be involved.
No, this was a skirmish, not a
But
battle.
so what I've learned is that you are one of the main pilots in, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the sole pilots of the ETM fleet currently,
Um,
with the
ye-
exception of Zeod.
yes. Zeod. Uh, I don't know every pilot. There's more than four. Which isn't a very, but I mean that's
That's progress.
expected. It's expected because we only have like six ships. Um,
Ah,
so I don't know all pilots' names. Um, I think it's like at least it's like Zeod, me, Mars, Cats, maybe some other one. But the Navy is inexperienced to say the least.
I see. Moving off of militaristic aspects, we're closing in on, I believe, minute 50 actually of the interview here.
Oh
I'm going to
damn.
open it up to subscriber questions because obviously we have a few people in the audience right now. And while we're waiting
Okay.
for them to cook up any questions, do you have any questions for me?
Yes, actually. I'm aware. Of course, that last time you were in ETM, you weren't treated well at all.
Oh, it was a very interesting time period the last time I
Yes.
was in ETM.
For those who don't know, when Microwaved was in ETM last time, he was in the same town actually, same town as the Secret Evil Empire.
Hmm.
Right where it is right now. And he was repeatedly, constantly accused of being a cultist spy.
Yes, vagrantly.
Now, um, he was harassed for this by the leadership of ETM. And depending on whose documentation you read of this event, you get different answers.
Yep, yep,
If you read Eternal Mayan documentation, you get you were a spy. If you read anyone else's, you get you weren't a spy. Um,
yes. And
now,
then occasionally if you read Matt's documentation, it's I wasn't a spy, but I was like not the right person for the job.
yes, I think that's more. No offense, that's more what was the case.
That is definitely the case. That's a very correct assumption.
Um, but I will ask you though. When we expand America, will you be joining us? I'm unaware how
When
your state is right now in Iron Federation. I can't
intriguing.
imagine it would be easy to simply switch sides,
Now
but it's something to ask. No?
Now, personally, I have a lot of quarrels with the New World Order. In fact, last time when we had Solo Duck on the show, I did refer to it as Big Koa, because that's what it
Yes.
essentially is. And I've never really liked Coalition that much. ETM was the only nation I've been a part of that was Coalition. And at the time, I was obviously a very unexperienced player. But after joining with LSR and then American Empire, and then eventually into what we would now call the Caribbean Empire, and then back into ETM, I've been very alliance cultured. And considering the amount of things that I have accumulated, I would not want to ever be a part of a nation which is associated with Thracia or associated with uh, Quintessence.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Considering, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
Um,
in general, though, depending on the situation that I'm in, ETM, if it were in South America, would never be an enemy to me. And
okay, that's good.
it's not like I go around constantly harassing people, but I generally have a good regard of the people who are around in my area. But yeah, no, ETM would never be an enemy. ETM's the hometown.
Okay, that's good to know.
Moving away from myself, obviously we have accumulated at least two subscriber questions. One is legitimate, the other is
Um,
not very legitimate.
Are these by those who are in the audience right now, or are these by like
These are by those who
beforehand?
are in the audience right now. So legally,
Okay. Wait. Okay. Okay. Before you start, I know what cats is. Is it by chance if you were a fish, what fish would you be?
yes, it is. Now legally,
I knew it.
I
Sorry.
I
Sorry.
do
Sorry.
have to ask you this question as it is contracted in our subscriber contract that whenever a business tier subscriber says they asks a question, I have to repeat it. So TNT, if you were a fish, what fish would you be?
Big mouth bass. That's your final answer, cats.
A big mouth bass. Not a large mouth, but a big mouth.
Yes. More
Intriguing.
so a fish of fiction than reality.
I see. Because I was gonna say I'm not aware of any big mouth bass existing.
Yes.
Very intriguing. Moving on to
Mhm.
Stoviet's question. Stoviet's question is a lot more profound. So obviously, a large reason of why you're not able to, I assume, not able to resurrect ETM earlier and not able to participate in a lot of things in CCNet was you were banned for, I believe, 8 months, correct?
Yes.
Now,
Correct.
Stoviet's question is, how has being banned impacted your experience in CCNet?
I think it has made me. It kind of inflated my ego a little bit because I was taken out of the server at the time that my nation was dying, and then I fought so hard for 8 months to get back, and then I feel like now I can't simply be like a nobody in a nation.
Hmm.
So I must do something big with like the opportunity I've gotten. But also I think it made me appreciate the server a lot more. I remember my thoughts when I was banned. Like I wish I took more pictures, like more screenshots, like of like the builds I made, the people I met, the places I went to, the forts I was at, the towns I was at. And now I'm actually back to able to apply the knowledge. I'm much more thankful for what I can do in the server. Like even as simple as just kind of like taking pictures of like a build I make, or when there's like players in one area, it's made me a lot more grateful.
I see. Now, Stoviet asked a follow-up question, and I was going to ask this as well. What gave you the motivation to come back to the server?
Um, Now I think somewhere along, I think when I ETM, short answer, Eternal Mayan Empire. But I think when I was banned, and as I was powerless to watch Herzl make a speech about the what's the word, about the disintegration of the Eternal Mayan Empire, um, I kind of just thought to myself silently that I'll bring it back. And
I
then
see.
with help from so many players, with help from like Nuxier and Boris for making it possible in the beginning, and like all the way to like Vector X, like speeding up the process ever so slightly at the end. Um, I think I was aided by the friends I made in ETM, and thus I feel like I have to pay it forward by bringing back ETM, even if they don't want to join it, even if they don't, if
See.
even if they want nothing to do with it. Yeah.
Well, to close out the interview, that's one of the most profound things I've heard in a while. It's one of the
Nice.
very shockingly emotional, and
Yes.
that's a great way to bring an end to a nearly hour-long interview.
A 1 hour long interview. Yeah, this is
Hmm.
good.
Now, TNT, if we went on for another four, wait, 16 minutes, you would eclipse
Maybe
the
longest
time.
interview.
You'd eclipse the time by, you'd eclipse Vectra's interview, which was about 1 hour and 10 minutes long.
I never
So,
took Vec as a user.
you
Um,
know, I
I
didn't think he'd be much of a talker too, but there's something about being Scottish and stealing a bunch of stuff that makes for a really good interview.
I know it's like, yeah,
It might be
of
a
course,
superpower.
if, of course, that has his own story on the server of making a lot of people mad when they wake up to find stuff stolen. Either way, if you had originally had Matt's VR in this VC, it would have gone 2 hours. I assure you.
Yeah.
As I'm
Now,
sure you are aware of his nickname, Matt Yap's VR.
I've never actually been on a VC with Matt.
Oh,
I don't
I
believe
can
I
see that
have.
as possible.
I think the few times when I was close to, he had a broken mic, and there was one time
Um,
where he was just completely inaudible.
it's very possible that because time zones, he's in Portugal. He can't really talk when it's like so late at night.
Hmm. Yeah,
So that
yeah.
could very well be it.
But still, I really do wish in the future eventually, because obviously now I've talked to you, I think it would be a natural progression to eventually get an interview with Matt sometime down the line.
Yes,
Although TNT was definitely great talking to you again. Does
yes,
anybody,
you as
both
well.
in the audience and yourself, have any final questions?
Any questions from Katz Armin or Stoviet?
We have a ping from Katz Armain. Oh,
Hmm.
Katz is typing.
If
This
you were
isn't.
a fish, what kind of fish would you be?
He might genuinely ask the question again, and if he does, that would be.
But he won't now because I already said it.
Oh,
You understand the mental mind games I went through to guess it the first time.
I see. Not at all the amount of repetition that may be required.
No, no,
Oh,
of course. It's just
and the
when I
final
hear
question to cap off the interview
yes.
is if you were a largemouth bass, what color fish would you be?
uh, hmm, that's a hard one. I would be white and light blue.
Intriguing. Naturally, those are also the colors of ETM, so
I didn't think you noticed that.
so that was purposeful. Okay.
Yes.
I thought about that for a second. All right.
Hmm.
Well, with that, folks, it is minute 57. Thank you for so much for being on the show today, TNT. It was great having you on. This was a great interview. I am Microwaved One of the S.E.E. paper. Thank you, folks, for listening. Thank you for watching.